The agenda for tonight is that I'm going to speak to you initially a little bit about the background of the project. You know, what's the project all about? What are we trying to achieve? Why are we doing it? And then I'll spend a few minutes going through that with you, and you're very welcome to raise a hand and ask questions as we go through that. But then I'll hand over to Patrick on Exmoor, and he'll take you through some of the sort of mechanics of how the platform that we're using works, and how you make observations and improve observations and things like that. Because Patrick is very much the sort of evil villain behind this whole project.
It's all my fault, I tell you. It's all my fault.
It is. Sat in his lair down in Exmoor. So so thank you, Sally. And with that, I'll move on to what this project is all about. So what I've put up on screen here is our written purpose. So all 15 UK parks volunteer officers came together and discussed this project back in October time, and we all agreed it was something we wanted to be part of, and so we've come together to deliver this as a joint UK-wide project. So what we did first of all is we wrote a project proposal that was a single document that went to all 15 parks management teams, so that every park was seeing the same set of information. It's not that one park thinks the project's one thing and a different park thinks it's something else. So one document to all 15 parks. And we're very pleased to report that all 15 parks are keen to be involved to some degree or other. And the benefit of this project is that individual parks can tailor their level of input really around their own circumstances. So fundamentally, the purpose of the project, I'm going to read off the screen here, so sorry if I look away on the camera, is to provide opportunities for a greater number and diversity of people to engage with, learn about and record wildlife across the 15 UK national parks and beyond. So the and beyond is important here as well. The project uses the iNaturalist platform to support complete novices and experts alike to contribute to the UK's official environmental records dataset. So in those two sentences, we've covered a lot of ground there. The aim behind this project is that wherever you are in your sort of wildlife knowledge, whether you are a complete novice with absolutely no idea at all, or whether you are on the expert end of the scale, and you may be an expert in your field, for example, everybody can contribute to this project. That is why we've chosen the platform, the iNaturalist platform, for this project. So if you're a volunteer who is already more on the expert end of the scale, then you might be thinking, I don't use iNaturalist, I use iRecord or another system for recording wildlife sightings, for example. The problem with that is there's not a problem with those systems. They're brilliant. They're very, very good at what they do. The problem is you do have to know what you're doing before you can use them. So you already have to be kind of on the expert end of the spectrum before you can actually use those systems to record wildlife sightings. The difference with iNaturalist is that anyone can contribute a sighting. So they can, if you've got a mobile device with a camera or recording system, you can take an image. You might have absolutely no idea what you're looking at, but you can contribute that into the project. And then we'll show you in a little while how then other volunteers, whether in the wider iNaturalist community or within our own volunteers within national parks, can help those complete novices to improve their knowledge and skills by helping them identify what they see. So straight away, you can see that this is very fundamentally, this project looks to do exactly what national parks were set up to do. So it directly links our first and second purpose. So with this audience, I will, you guys will already know this because you're already National Park volunteers, but our first purpose is about conservation, conserving the special qualities, and our second purpose is about engagement and enjoyment and understanding of those special qualities for the nation. So the idea here is that we engage the whole nation, whatever your level of wildlife expertise. Everybody can be engaged, everybody can contribute, but fundamentally out the back end we produce data that helps us in our conservation first purpose aim. So very inclusive. Everybody needs everybody else to make it work, and at the end of that we come out with data that helps us with our conservation aims. Okay. So, right, that I've kind of already covered this, but I'll mention it again. National parks. If we go back to why national parks were founded, it was for the nation. It was very much about urban, industrialised towns and cities post-war. Who didn't, I guess. Just going to attempt to do a mute all, Patrick, which hopefully won't mute me, but I will just check that. Okay, so I was getting a bit of feedback there. So yeah, so the reason national parks were set up was for the nation, and it was post-war, people living in urban centres, industrialised towns, without access to the countryside, without access to nature. And that's why we were set up. So again, this project echoes that. We want to engage everybody wherever they live, whatever they're doing, and we want to engage them with nature. So this slide that you can see on the screen now, the way I've presented this is explore more, discover more, care more. But really what that means is that we want to encourage people to look around them more. So that could be in your bathroom at home for the spider on the windowsill, or it could be in your garden, or it could be in your urban centre or urban green space, or wherever it is, not necessarily within a national park boundary. We just want people to explore nature around them wherever they are, and look for it more. And then once they've looked for it, we want them to discover and learn a bit more about it, which this app can help people do, and how you can help complete novices learn a bit more by sharing your knowledge. And once people have looked and explored and discovered and learned a little bit about it, hopefully we get to the situation where people actually value nature a little bit more and care more about it. So everybody on this session tonight is already a member of staff or a volunteer with a national park. So we can take it for granted that we care about national parks and nature and the environment as a rule. But what we really need is we need to engage more people to care as much as we do. And that way, that's how we get engagement and change in the way that we would all like things to go. So not a small aspiration for the project, quite an ambitious aspiration. So we want to do what we can do in the way that we can do it. So I will hopefully move on. One last slide. So this slide here kind of shows you the mechanics of how this works before we get into the sort of technical side with Patrick. So on the one level, we are looking to engage as many people as possible. That's the start point. We want to engage as many people as possible, remove as many barriers as possible. From a National Park Authority's perspective, this gives us a resource as well to use in our education work, through our events and guided walks and things like this. It gives us an opportunity to use through our online, so through our web and social media work to promote people to download the app and start recording, and also through our sort of standard volunteering activities. So here in Northumberland, I will be looking to build this app into some of our core activities. So whether you are on a patrol out in the park, at the minute you might write down a wildlife sighting on your patrol form. It's very interesting to the ranger who reads that, but then it doesn't go any further. Whereas what we'll start to do is say, if you spot something interesting, can you try and capture it and get it recorded, and then we can actually get it into our conservation data set. Another way is we run guided walks and volunteer delivered walks and events and things like that. Well, actually, when we do our Hay Meadow walk in July, we may well be asking our volunteers to engage people on that walk with, looking and identifying the flowers in that hay meadow using this app, and encouraging the wider public to get interested and do it. So it's a useful engagement tool within our volunteering activity, as well as our wider engagement work. So that gets us lots of records or lots of observations made within the system. The downside of engaging everybody is that you can't guarantee high quality conservation data. So if you are relying on a small number of experts, you can be pretty confident that the records they produce are going to be good quality, and you can rely on them and trust them. If you're asking someone who is a complete novice and doesn't have any idea what they're looking at to record something, you start off with an observation, but with no confidence in its quality. So what this app does is there is a wider online community on iNaturalist, and they all help improve observations by suggesting what it is that you've observed. And that's, my experience of doing this over the last couple of months is that I can upload something, and literally within 5 minutes, I've got someone coming back and helping me improve my sighting. And certainly within a couple of hours or a couple of days, I've usually got 2 or 3 people narrowing it down, or agreeing with me, or disagreeing and improving it. So you've got the wider community within iNaturalist, and this is a global app. I should add, I know Patrick has got some examples of slug experts in China identifying slugs on Exmoor and such like. Beyond that, and this is where you guys come in particularly, is within our own existing volunteer ranks. If we can get all you guys signed up onto this app and using it and helping improve records, then your specific knowledge and expertise can improve the data quality that we're looking at. And then finally we are looking. Oh, I can hear myself back. Just apologies on that, and see if I can remedy that. Okay, that's better. Finally, we are looking at, and we're not going to cover this in great detail tonight, but for those of you who are more on the expert end of the wildlife observer spectrum in particular, we will be looking for volunteers who can in effect act like a quality assurance gateway. So we identify records which are what I would call conservation or record centre grade quality. They have everything that a record centre needs to say that is a very good, reliable, accurate record. And that way we can separate out anything that maybe isn't up to scratch from that is. And then it's only that quality controlled data that goes through into our record centres and our national data sets and projects and such like. So that's kind of how the project works when you put it down in theory. You guys, whether you are a skilled observer or not, can contribute by observing, and then if you have further skills that you can contribute, you can help us by improving observations and data quality. And fundamentally, that's it. It's not that complex. It is a fairly simple idea. It's very much what people would term a citizen science project. We want to use the power of many citizens, everybody who's interested really, and we want to use that mass number of people to actually record what they see, because the small number of experts can't be everywhere all the time. So if you like, the masses can observe, and then we can, as we increase our level of expertise, as we go through, then those people come on board and start to improve what we're seeing to the point where we end up linking our second purpose at the start with our first purpose at the end there. So with that, I will stop talking, but hopefully that's given you a good overview and understanding. I can see that we've got one hand raised here, Jill Leader. So Jill, if you wanted to unmute and ask a question, that would be great.
Hi, yeah, sorry, it was a technical one. I've not used Teams before, and am I meant to be seeing something on the screen?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, well, what we will do, Jill, as well, is we're recording this session and we will make the recording available as well. So what you should have been seeing on screen is some slides which have gone behind what I've just been saying. So we will make this recording available to you all, and you can see the slides on that recording if you can't see it now. It might be a problem with Patrick's next bit because he is going to demonstrate some things on screen.
This is something
Patrick, do you
do to
yeah.
So I am going to do the next bit in a slightly different way, which may fix the problem. The other thing, other people may be experiencing the same thing, particularly if you're on a mobile device. Sometimes if you swipe sort of left or right, you can see it in different views. And one of the views is driving mode, where it turns off the video. And other views are such things as individual people or the document that's being shared at the moment. That may fix it, but if not, I'm going to try and do something slightly different in a minute, which may also fix it. But like Dave says, worst case, we are recording it. We'll post it onto YouTube and let people have the link to it at the end as well.
Mm-hmm. Does that, are you on a mobile device, Jill?
I'm on an iPad.
On an iPad. So if there is an option to swipe one way or the other to see if you can see it through a different view, you could try that. Otherwise, we're probably at a little bit of a loss on that, but you can definitely pick up the video link once we post it, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay. Well, with that, I will hand over to Patrick, and he will show you how the technology works. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you. Can you stop sharing the screen for a second?
Oh, right, hang on, that's disappeared. In fact, Patrick's disappeared. Okay, so this is a little bit of filler from me whilst we try and get Patrick back, the main man. So we can see already that we've had quite a good, quite a good number of people have managed to download the app on a mobile device. They've managed to create an iNaturalist account on that device, and we can also see that over 100 people have joined our National Parks UK WildWatch scheme already. I think just before I came on the call, it was sitting at about 105 or so people who had joined the project. Hear you, but we can't see you, Patrick.
That is probably just as well, but there we go. Is that any better? So the world is looking much less nice now we've found out what the real world is like. Now we're on the mobile phone. But I'm going to start sharing my screen now in any case before anything else gets a chance to go wrong. And we will do this all on a mobile phone. So there we go. So this is my phone screen that I'm sharing with you now. So we've got the magnifier, iNaturalist, Seek, and then a smart recorder. So the two we're interested in are the central two, iNaturalist and Seek. If you go to your app store and try and download one of these, it's iNaturalist that we're looking at tonight. So that's the one you're going to be looking for. That's the right symbol. And if you just search for iNaturalist, probably those central two will come up, but it's the one on the left that you want to download. Seek is slightly simpler to use, but it takes a bit more setting up for the records to come through. So it's a really good tool if you've got school groups out. It's a bit more setting up on a device to make it work and send the records through, but you can then give the device to 40 kids and send them off running around a school field, photographing things, and not have to worry about how it's working, because it's a bit more of a seamless thing once it's set up to work. But for tonight, we're looking at iNaturalist, so I'll open that up on my phone, and there we go. Ideal, that's perfect. When you first open it, so obviously I've used this before, so you can see a list of my observations coming down underneath there. So we've got lumpy bracket, jelly baby, parasol, all these things appearing. Obviously, when you first downloaded it, you won't have your observations on it, so that screen will be blank, and you'll just have this big green circle with the plus sign in the bottom right hand corner. Now, the first thing we're going to want you to do is actually to join our project. Now, I'm guessing lots of the people here probably have done already, but just in case you haven't and you've got the app. So, sorry, once you've downloaded the app, you need to put in your email address and a few details so it knows who you are, and so you register the app with iNaturalist, basically, and then you'll get to this point. So if I take that away, these little 3 lines up in the top left-hand corner, if you tap on those, it opens up the menu, and you see the second one down is projects. It'll start loading in any projects that you have joined, and in the top right-hand corner, there's that little magnifying glass, and then you can search for any projects of particular interest. So there we go. Here's our 2 projects that we've got going on. We're looking at the bottom project this evening. So that's the National Parks UK WildWatch. The one above is what Dave was talking about a bit earlier on, which is more about that quality assurance. We'll come on to that in a little bit more detail later, but we're going to save most of that for another night. What we want to do this evening is to get this first, or this bottom project, National Parks UK WildWatch, everyone confident using that first, and then there's kind of a progression on from there to the other one. So we'll click on that. It tells us a bit of information about it. If I click on the other side, it will open up, and you'll see it's opening up. It's starting to load in all of our observations that we've got on there. At the top, it says we've got 80,601 observations of 5,000 species and 7,000 people that have helped put them all on there. Above that, you'll see it says join, news and about. So we need people to click up on that join button. On the news, that will be empty at the moment, but in due course, we'll be adding sort of updates to the project and how we go. And on the about, there's a little bit that's basically saying, if you've joined this project, we will try and use your data for our in our work, and we might use your photographs as well to promote this project. Dave, can you just confirm you can still hear me, because my phone was making interesting noises there.
Yeah, Patrick, we can see and hear everything you're saying at the moment.
That is perfect. So once you've joined that project, that's absolutely perfect. That's all you need to do from there. You can have a scroll down through this list and see some of the things that have been added on, and we'll come back and have another look at those in a minute. But first, if you push the back arrow up here and again, and then I'll go back to my normal profile. So this is the screen that you'll normally log into it, and we want to go and make a new observation. Now, there are 2 ways that you can do this. We've got at the moment the round circle with the plus in the bottom. Also from the menu at the bottom of that, you've got a new observation option there. I'm going to come in from this screen, and I'm going to add a new record. So I've clicked on the camera option. You can also upload things from the distant past as well. You'll be pleased to say that this is not going to be a final record. This is not going to be we're going to be in trouble if this ends up on a record on iNaturalist, aren't we? So I'm going to take the picture, and I'm happy with that picture, so we'll upload it, and that's starting to upload. I'm actually going to add another one as well, and possibly a slightly better image. So I'm going to go to choose images, and I'm going to add this little millipede to it. And actual fact, I'm going to leave that millipede as our main sighting, so things work slightly nicer, I think. So you can see the two ways of getting images into it there, either taking a picture straight away or having the millipede in. Now, it's quite important that you've got your location services turned on, so it will then work out where you are. And in actual fact, if I come down and click what did you see in here, it's straight away going to start coming up with some suggestions. So this is just the computer's guess. So I found this black brownie crawly bug underneath the log, and I've taken a picture of it, and its best guess is that it's somewhere in this family, the Juliidae. Latin is not my forte, I'm afraid. And it could be any one of these coming down here. Now, if you tap on one of those options, it'll open it up so you can learn a little bit more about it. And you can click down here to learn more information on iNaturalist. And that basically takes you to the Wikipedia entry for this, so you can see how many segments it's got and all those sorts of things. Now, I am not a millipede expert or a centipede expert, so I'm going to go with its automated suggestion to the family. I'm not confident enough to go to species. To be honest with you, I don't even know what features I need to record about it to go to species level. So I'm just going to leave it at that sort of that higher up family level. In the notes section here, I can add in anything I want to write that, found under a log, whatever you want to say. It's automatically put the time and date in. For some reason, it's not put my location in. So I'll open that up and I'm going to zoom in here. I think that's probably because I'm inside the house, and so it's hiding from the satellites. Normally this would be done automatically, but if it doesn't, you can zoom in and find the spot where you found it, and there we go, Exford, right in the center of the village. Actually, it was just down here on that log heap. So I then tick the little tick button up in the top right hand corner to confirm that was the right spot. There's a little bit of here about visibility, so you can obscure it. So if it's your favorite chanterelle spot and you don't want anyone else to know where it is, but you would quite like it recorded so that the planners know not to put a bypass through your favorite chanterelle spot, but you don't really want everybody knowing, you can click on obscured, and NBN and iRecord and official recorders will still be able to see that location, but it won't be visible to the general public. This is also quite good at the moment if people are at home and self-isolating and you don't want to put the location of your understairs cupboard where you've been surveying for spiders is. You can obscure that location so it's not visible to the general public, but at the back end, once that data becomes useful, we can still get it as we need to. There's a bit down there, is it captive or cultivated? So if you're doing this for garden plants, which you can do, just make sure you tick that box to say it's the captive or cultivated plant, so it's not doesn't end up on the wild list of things. If you go and take a picture of a tiger at the zoo, we don't want to think that tiger is a wild tiger running around our countryside, essentially. At the bottom, there's a bit about add to projects, which if you go further with that quality assurance bit, you will need to be able to use that then. But at the moment, you can forget about that. And we will just click upload for that. And that will then start to upload that image. So doing things that way works fairly well. Does anyone have any questions about that side of things?
We've got Mark and Val Kerr. So if Mark and Val, if you want to unmute and ask that question.
Yeah, so I was trying to follow along with the app on my iPhone, and although bits of it looked the same as Patrick's, a lot of it was quite different. Is that because you're on an Android device, or have I got an out-of-date version, or what?
No, I'll let Patrick come back to that. But yeah, one of the reasons we've steered clear of giving real complete step-by-step instructions is because if you're on Android or iOS, and even once you're on Android, different manufacturer handsets, it can appear slightly different. The basic process is the same, but it can appear slightly different on each phone. Do you want to add to that, Patrick?
Yeah, you're quite right. We have had a few users who have been using Apple devices. Because we've been doing all this through lockdown, I've not had a chance to look on anyone else's Apple phone to see what it looks like. But I do understand it is slightly different on different devices, which, like Dave's, that's why we've tried to steer clear a little bit of giving too much detail. But the principle of go to the projects, join our project. If you've already joined the project via the web page, you don't need to worry about that bit. It will sync between the devices. So once you've joined the project as that one-off thing, either on your mobile app or on the web page, then you can go straight in to adding an observation, and you don't need to worry too much further from there. And like you say, there will be a few things that are slightly different. I think the menu might be down at the bottom instead of up at the top and things like that. But the basic principles behind it should be at least similar, I hope. I have seen that on the iNaturalist forums that there is a new Apple app coming, which is looking at trying to make it slightly more similar to the Android app, so it will sink in. But I saw them talking about that last April. It's not here yet.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen online, yeah, it's a slightly different view, but it's I think it's basically the same functionality. So it's a case of downloading, registering, searching for the project on the project menu and joining the project. And then, as Patrick said, there's some sort of green plus symbol, I think, whether it's Apple or Android, where you can add a new observation. You can then, as Patrick showed, you can either take a picture or a sound recording sort of live, or you can upload an image from your image library or sound recording from another source, and sort of add that observation. And then it's a case of if it's not auto-populating date and location, it's basically adding the date and location to it, and then syncing it from there. We've got Jane. I don't have a surname, but I've got Jane with a hand up. So if Jane wanted to unmute at this point. Hi, Jane. Go ahead. It looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. So that might be a technical glitch your end, Jane. So apologies for that. We can't hear that question. So we'll hand back to yourself, Patrick. Do we want to move to if you were going to upload something using the website, or do you want to stay on the mobile device at present?
I'm just having a go at joining it back on the computer where the website might work slightly better. So we'll see how that goes for 2 seconds. But yeah, so the next part of it, so if people are happy doing things on the mobile phone, that is probably the easiest way when you're out and about to add your observations, because you don't have to move it between different devices then and transfer the photos from your phone onto your computer and all that sort of thing. So if you've got a mobile phone or a tablet or something like that, getting the app onto there, photographing when you're out and about, it logs your location as you go as well. I mean, I've quite often gone out on walks and I've taken photographs of random mushrooms that I haven't known what they were on my walk, and by the time I've got home, it's downloaded through the data, and there's people out there identifying them for me before I put the kettle on when I've got in the door. And by the time I've made the cup of tea, I've got 20 identifications of things that I've been looking at, which is absolutely amazing. they're not always that good, and a lot of it is dependent on how good the photograph is. And there's a lot to be said for the quality of the photograph, and also sort of the different angles that it are. And hopefully we'll look at that a little bit in a minute.
Yeah, just whilst you do that, Patrick, my experience on that as well over the last couple of months is very, very similar. So I've taken taken pictures of things on my walk, and within a few minutes of getting home, had people sort of either agreeing or disagreeing and improving the sighting, or narrowing it down from, I know that's a fungi, I think it's some sort of bracket fungi, but I don't know what it is. So I've just left it at sort of bracket fungi level, and then sort of people with names like Peachy Steve with a picture of a mushroom as his sort of symbol, and top fungi identifier in the world, or whatever, comes in and identifies it for me. The other thing that I did the other night whilst sort of sat in front of the telly was I literally scrolled through my sort of Google Photos on my phone, sort of scrolling through until I got to old photographs that I've taken in previously over the last few years or whatever, and then as I've come to something of a piece of wildlife, then I've basically just upload from my photo the share with, you can share it to iNaturalist and make an observation that way as well. So I just sort of scrolled through in front of the telly and added about 20 or 30 wildlife photographs I've taken over the last 2 or 3 years from my phone in that way as well. So quite easy from in terms of either taking images or sound recordings, or uploading images or sound recordings on a mobile device. That's fairly easy, I think. Where a mobile device is less good is when you're coming to actually improve someone else's identification, and that's where the web version really sort of comes into its own, I guess. But with that, I'll hand you back to Patrick.
I do. And I think I am still back in the room, and possibly with a better camera, and possibly with my website screen shared. Excellent. Technology wins again.
That's
possibly
working, Patrick.
I don't know.
It is working.
One day we'll all meet in real life, and not on the tiny screens in our sitting rooms, and we can. The wonderful thing with this is, although we can start it now with all our technological difficulties, we're not planning to keep it like this. We want people out there in real life, meeting with real people, doing it together, out in the countryside, in our national parks, in other places. So hopefully this is temporary glitches, and we'll get the best of this. We'll get the best of the technology we can, but one day we'll be seeing real people again, I'm absolutely certain. So here we are on the website, and hopefully you can see that both behind me and also above me, I think, where you should see it in slightly better quality as well. So again, this is our main project, the National Parks UK WildWatch project. If you've not joined it yet, where it says members up here, it will say join. So click on join, and once you've done that, you'll be able to see who else in the group are members of it. And if you scroll down here, we've got a map which shows beautifully where all of the national parks are. So each one of these little red dots is an observation. And I love the thought that each one of these little red dots is a few minutes of over 80,000 times now of someone saying, "Ooh, what's that? Well, that's interesting. Oh, I like the look of that." So it's, it's 80,500 observations of someone loving nature in some way enough to take notice of the little black wriggly thing, or the amazing parrot, or whatever it happened to be. So we've looked at how to do it on your mobile phone, how to get that uploaded on your mobile phone. But I'm guessing there's lots of people sat at home and not going out and about very much at the moment, and you may have tens of thousands, or at least dozens, of photographs of bits of wildlife that you've taken around the national park in years gone by. And if I click on the observations tab here, And so if I bring it up to the grid view even, we can see some of these things that have been put on in the last few days. But as we scroll down, there's things which are a few years old as well, which is absolutely brilliant because that shows people are downloading their past records. So let's have a quick lesson on how you can do that. First of all, we need to have joined our project, which we've been through. So again, to click on that, on the bit where it says join up there, once you've signed up and logged in. If you haven't got a join bit there, it's because you're not logged into iNaturalist yet. And if you go up again to where that bit's coming down from, then that is where, if you're not signed in, it will say sign in or sign up, and that's where you can create an iNaturalist account or sign into your iNaturalist account. Once you're signed in, here it will say either join or members. If it says join, join it, and then you'll be a member, and then you can manage that later on. So above that, we've got this big upload symbol. So if we click on upload, and that will open up a new window where you can choose either, if you're good at downloading things, you can drag things around and drag into it. I'll click on choose files, which will open up my file browser, so sort of all of the images on my computer. And I suspect that bit of the screen doesn't get shared when I'm doing this, but essentially I am selecting 3 images of the same mushroom that I took last autumn. And although I'm doing it with 3, you could also do it. I don't know what the maximum number is. I've never found it. It could be 10, or it might be 300, or you could take your entire photo library and drop it in one foul swoop. I'm just going to do 3 pictures for the demonstration, because otherwise we could be here for a long time. So that's our 3 photographs uploaded. Now you see up in the top right hand corner it says submit 3 observations. Now this is 3 photographs of the same mushroom in the same place at the same time. So we don't want to upload 3 separate mushrooms. We want to upload the same one 3 times. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm going to do the same with this. So those 3 images are now, and I can scroll through here to see those 3 images, and they're all contained within that one observation. And you'll see up in that top right hand corner it now says submit 1 observation. If you downloaded 100 pictures, you can group them together for the things that are the same observation and leave other ones separate for things which are different. And again, you need to come in and add the name. I never quite worked out what this one was. We've got parrot wax cap. I'm absolutely certain it wasn't that, but it probably was a wax cap of some sort. So I'm going to start typing that in, and there it comes up. You can then add the date, not today's date, the date it was observed. It's quite important. People use this for phenology to see when things were fruiting or when they were flowering. So getting the correct date is quite important. And this was at the end of October we found it. And then if you click on location, it's going to open up a map. Now, sometimes in the metadata of your photograph, which I realise probably no one will care what it means or even know, but sometimes your photograph is clever and tells the computer where it was taken, and this time it isn't. So I've got to load in the map again, and again zoom in to the right spot, and we'll pretend this is in a different national park to keep the love spread around. So here we are with the Brecon Beacons. Picking a random spot. Don't worry, I won't really upload this record because it's a fake one. So if I just do a left-hand click on there somewhere, it's going to put this red circle that's telling everyone that my record was found somewhere inside that red circle. I can take hold of these outside edges and I can drag it around to change the size of that circle. So if I knew it was somewhere at that end, I can sort of put it in like that to increase, and you'll notice down the bottom where the accuracy is, ACC in meters, it's now up to 374 meters, somewhere in that 374 meters, and if I drag it down, it's down to 95 meters. Now obviously the more accurate you make it, the more useful a record it is, but a really accurate but entirely wrong record is worse than an inaccurate but right record. So if you know it's somewhere in that end of the lake, say it's somewhere in that end of the lake rather than a 2-meter spot in that end of the lake, because otherwise someone can spend a lot of time searching that 2-meter spot to find that it's not there. So once you've done that, you can change your locality notes in here as well. So if you want a bit more detail of exactly where it was, the parish that it was in, or the name of the lake, or the name of the walk, or the nature reserve, you can add that sort of detail in there as well. Update observations. Again, on the left hand side now, you can add notes about it. You can make it so it's obscured, all exactly the same settings that were there in the phone. You can add tags, you can add it to projects in here as well. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. And then you can add extra fields to it in there as well. So I'm not going to upload that record because it will wreck the system if I try and do that, because we don't really want that to really turn up in there. I'm going to instead click on to this next project. Now I'm only going to spend a few seconds on this. Once you've got good at uploading projects, I just wanted to show this is that the data cleansing part of it, that the quality assurance volunteer side of it, where people will be able to add observations to this project, and it's these ones that will then be submitted through NBN to iRecord, if that means anything to anyone. If it doesn't mean anything to you, it's because it's not important. If it does mean something to you, then NBN will extract these records for us with the locations and pass them on to iRecord, and it will be down to the iRecord verifiers to give us the final take on whether or not it's a good enough record for to be added to sort of the official databases and put into use. If we send them all of our data, all 80,000 records, the verifiers at iRecord, who are extremely clever, well-trained people, will fall over in absolute shock and horror that they now have 80,000 records that the 5 of them have got to sort through. So we come into that point to say these are the 1,000 really important records that we want them to look at, rather than sending them the 80,000 and absolutely swamp them with stuff that they can't get their way through. We're not going to go into any more about that tonight, but we will be looking at it in the future for anyone who that's sort of like a stage further from this bit of the project, if that makes sense. So that brings us back into the observations that have been made in our main public project. And we've got a few up here. And I think the next part of what we want to do is looking at how we can start to improve the quality of that data.
Yeah, that's right. So just a quick recap at this point. So what Patrick's shown us so far is on a mobile device or on a desktop, on what I'll just call a computer, whatever it is, laptop, desktop, whatever. So on a mobile device, how to make an observation in the field or upload from your photos or whatever on that device. And then this second way that is shown is basically if you're on a computer, you've maybe taken, for example, you might have taken really high quality photographs on a proper digital camera, for example, and you've got some fantastic wildlife photographs, but they're not on a phone sort of thing. Then that's how you can search your files, add them into an observation and upload an observation. So far we've basically made observations either on a mobile device or on a computer. The next phase, so this is very much what anyone can do. Anyone and everyone, we want to do that. The next stage is that Patrick's going to run you through is how, in effect, you or we can help improve the data quality that's within those observations. So someone's uploaded it. The example Patrick used before was the millipede. So he didn't know what species that was, so he uploaded it saying it's some type of millipede. If you are a millipede expert, you could pick that observation up and then basically start identifying it down to species level. So what Patrick's going to do now and this bit is, you can do this on a mobile, but it is better on a computer. It works slightly better on a computer. So I think the way we're going to show you is how you do it on a computer, how you can help improve someone else's records, basically. Sorry, back over to you, Patrick.
That's absolutely perfect. So yeah, we'll show you on the computer. If you're really smart on your smartphone, it's something that you can carry on doing whilst you're sat at the bus stop or waiting for in the queue for shopping, but all of these things that nobody does anymore. So perhaps we'll keep it on the main computer. So we can see all of the pictures in there. We've also got another tab here, which is, so this is, if you look in this view, this is all of the pictures which have been added into our project. So all of the observations inside the national park. And then if we come to the Identify tab, this is all the ones which haven't been fully identified. So anything that hasn't got to research grade yet. And if I come back to our main project, sorry, I'm getting entirely lost here. The way to get to those two places is essentially what I want to show you here. And under the Observations tab, we've got Identify and Search. So the search will take you to this view where you can search for everything in there. And up at the top, you've got this set of filters. So you can filter that data by species or verifiable or still needs an ID or just fungi or just plants or just insects or just birds, whatever you want to do. And then in the project, we've got our project name that's automatically in there down there. So you can search for things that are just in our project, or if you want to search wider, you can do that as well. So in the Identify view, it's got one big advantage, that you can click Mark as reviewed. Once you've done that, it won't show you that one again in that view. So if you've looked at this one and say, I don't know anything about fungi, I'll go Mark as reviewed. Once you go down to the bottom and save, next time you come in, you won't have to re-look at those same observations that you've looked at before. But once you've got to the observation that you want to improve, I've got a few tabs up here that open, the things that people have put in, and we've got this one, which is it's been identified as a bushy beard lichen, and it's down in Dartmoor National Park. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't know if this is correct or not. I've not got enough confidence in my lichen identification. What I do know is that lichens are really, really difficult to identify. If I come down here, I can click on what it's been suggested as, and that will open up this page. So this is the stock footage of the thing that they've said it is. And again, it looks entirely different to me. The bushy beard lichen, according to its, this is basically its Wikipedia entry, and if you come down, you can see a bit more about it as well. But these are sort of the pictures of it. It's got these great big sun discs on it. And if we come into this, I really can't make out any of those sun discs in that observation. What I'm not expert enough to know is, are those just fruiting bodies that are absent, or is it something else entirely? So I'm going to suggest an identification for it. And it's not a very helpful identification. I'm pretty sure it's one of these. It's in this family. It's in the Ursnia family. It's one of the beard lichens. So I'm going to select that one and click Done, and it brings me up this little warning, and it says, "Is the evidence provided enough to confirm that it is the bushy beard lichen, what that original person said it was?" And my options are, I don't know, but I'm sure it's a beard lichen, or no, it's not. So I've got two options there. One, I can say that the original poster is wrong. It's in the right family, but it's not the right thing he's got there. And my confidence, my knowledge isn't good enough to be sure of that, to be honest. So I don't want to go and say that they're wrong, but I am sure it's in the beard lichens. So I can put that down as an option. This will give it a bit more weight. People who are beard lichen experts were more likely to come and see this post now, and it will bring their expertise into this post to try and get a much better identification than I or is it Charlie Ratpig is able to do. Great names, isn't it? I love it. So that one's up there. So let's come and have a look at another one. This is a great example. This is something that was being put on the 2nd of February by John White up in North York Moors. I guess John might be with us tonight, potentially. I don't know. Anyway, John, we're going to look at your record if you're here, and we'll try not to pull it apart too much. We'll be very kind to you if we can. Because it's an absolutely beautiful picture of an orchid. Absolutely no doubt about that. Again, John's suggested that it's a Heath spotted orchid, and again, I'm not enough of an expert to be able to doubt that, I'm entirely honest, but two other people have. We've got Mercantor and Tigger X, who both think it's a common spotted orchid, so they've disagreed with John's identification, which means at the moment it has gone, the identification has gone back to marsh orchids. So that's the family that contains both Heath spotted orchid and the common spotted orchid. And at the moment, there's a bit of disagreement about exactly what it is. If you are an expert and you are absolutely sure of what it is, then by all means, come and click in here and suggest an identification. I'm not. I know that both of these two people, I've seen lots of their observations and things they've worked in. I know both of these guys are quite expert in plant identification. So this is one I'm not going to get involved in too heavily. In terms of how you made the record, and this is very unfair to John now, it was taken back in July and updated in February. It would have been really nice to see a picture of the leaves and a few more angles. Now, obviously, when you're uploading old records, it's just not a possibility necessarily. If you didn't think to take that picture of a close-up of the leaf because you were taking a picture of a pretty flower 8 months ago, to go back and find the leaf today is a bit of a strong ask, really. But if you're out there taking new pictures, it's really good to get the thing from a few different angles and get a few different pictures, the leaves, the undersides of the leaves, because when the expert comes to look at that record and they say, but was there a line of hairs running down the back of the leaf? And I don't, with lots of these things, I just don't know the right things that you need to be looking at. But lots of photographs from lots of different angles means that those people with that real expert knowledge can look at your pictures and go, oh yes, I can see the lines running down the stem, or I can see the serrated edge to the leaf, or the dots on the back of the petal, or whatever it might be. There's another thing we can do to improve this observation though, as we come down to here, and I don't think you can do this on the app, you do have to do this in the website. We've got a bit about plant phenology here, so we can come in and add that it was flowering, and it wants to know the sex as well. I don't even know if, I'm guessing that they don't have genders with orchids, but we can add that bit of information in to say that it's in flower. That's just a bit of extra information that if people are searching for the time of year that common spotted orchids are in flower in this location, then they can easily filter that data for ones which are in flower. More important with frogs, I was looking up all the frog spawn records, and again you can say if it's an adult, if it's a tadpole, if it's an egg. So obviously if you've got pictures of frog spawn, I was looking for pictures of frog spawn and I was searching for frogs because frog spawn is frogs, it's the same species, it's just in a different life stage. And of course I was getting thousands of pictures of frogs, and I said, but I want pictures of frog spawn. But you can filter it for eggs, common frog eggs, and then you get all the frog spawn pictures. And whilst we've been talking, John, who must be in this meeting, I'm guessing, has come and withdrawn the ID for the Heath spotted orchid, and has, there we go, has agreed with these other twos, which now means it's gone to research grade. So already, just by having this meeting, we've started improving the quality of this observation. And it's out there, and in fact, as everyone's agreeing, I'm going to take this a stage further and take it to our National Parks UK Submissions for Verifications project, and click on there and click add. So that has now been added to our verification project as well. So that will now be submitted through NBN off to iRecord to go to the UK plant verifiers and be sent back to North York Moors National Park for them to use in whichever way they see fit for land management or whatever else. Now, to be able to do that last bit, adding to the project, you need to go through a few more steps, and we need to give you some admin rights to be able to do that. Like I said, we don't want to go too much into that tonight, but I just wanted to give that one example. That extra bit of doing it is that simple, of typing it in onto the record, and that's the job done. If we look at a couple more now, we've got an orange tip butterfly added up in there. And again, you can add a bit about the life stage in here. For insects, it wants to know if it's alive or not. This is really useful information if it gets added into the, there we go, that's it's being added in as well. Somebody's done it before me. So now this one,
Patrick, sorry, I've just come in there, Patrick, because that's also another good tip, isn't it? Because taking pictures of dead things is actually, first of all, they're generally quite easy to photograph because they're not moving, because they're dead. But it does generate a record that species was in that location, and presumably it was alive before it was dead. You know, that's actually really quite a useful tip, isn't it? If you see dead stuff around, actually record the dead stuff as well.
Yes, but mark it as dead, because some organisations will be more interested in live records. Sometimes the National Mammal Society will come round and do a survey of road-killed hedgehogs, and so a series of dots on here that say hedgehog dead. That's really good information of sort of how many hedgehogs are being killed on our roads, and things can be looked at from that way as well. So we go, orange tip butterfly, and again from there we did have one amazing record that came up on Exmoor that was an orange tip butterfly, and I looked at it and it was a plant in the photograph, and I was like, oh, it's not going to work. People identifying plants as butterflies, and it got to research grade as well. 2 people, I think 3 people actually, had agreed that this plant was an orange tip butterfly, and I held my head in my hands and looked more closely at this tiny little orange egg that was actually an egg of an orange tip butterfly laid on this plant. So it really was an orange tip butterfly, but just in its egg state. I'll flick through these next few pretty quickly. So we've got a large marsh grasshopper here, and it's made it to research grade. It's an amazing picture of one as well, and it's a screenshot from what looks like an app on somebody's phone. It's down in the New Forest. Now, this could be a really genuine record, I don't know. But the fact that it's a screenshot and it's a really good picture of the animal, you know, it's quite an arty picture there. It might be that it was on someone's Instagram feed or whatever, and they know it is in that right place, in which case that's absolutely brilliant. But it could also be that they were uploading pictures just to have a go at it, and they grabbed a picture off of the internet to upload it to see what would happen. So this sort of record, because of that, I wouldn't really want these being added into our main project, because people are going to start questioning that unless we've got some reassurance and we know who that person is. And we can actually make contact with them. We can leave a comment here and type, if you do the @ symbol and then AGG IE JT, that will go, there we go, that brings up their name. So when I type that in, when I leave that comment, it will send them an email to say user such and such has asked you a question about your observation. So you can get a bit of feedback from the people who have actually been doing the observing then as well, which is really useful. So yeah, just be wary of images like that might be slightly different. We've got an Indian peafowl here. It's not what I would call it either. So iNaturalist uses a set of internationally agreed names, and there are ways that you can adjust them in different territories and different countries, so it can be multilingual, but the default is sort of the international agreed one. So Indian peafowl is what we end up with here, instead of a peacock. It doesn't really matter, it's tomatoes and tomatoes, it's all the same thing. The Latin name is still the same, and that's what we will work off of. So don't worry about that sort of thing too much. If the system automatically puts in a slightly odd common name, don't worry about it too much. It can be cleaned up later on. Then we've got things like this Scarlet Elf Cup, which has been left by Richard 470 up in the Yorkshire Dales. This is an absolutely brilliant record. The only problem is, and I only found this out, it's kind of an awareness of how much knowledge you've got and what you do and don't know. There's actually 2 species of elf cup in the UK. Both of them are bright red and absolutely indistinguishable with the naked eye without taking a cross-section cut of it and putting it underneath a microscope to look at the cell formation within it. Now, obviously, that is not an accessible thing for 99.9% of people out there, and even the knowledge that there's 2 types of things isn't there. But what we probably ought to do with this is to suggest a slightly higher grade observation, because without that sort of pictures from a microscope, there's no way that you can get a confident identification on this. And this just comes down to my personal knowledge. If you know this sort of stuff, then do it. If you don't, Google around things before you do it and see if you can find out, but don't worry too much. So I'm going to do done, and I'm going to say it's definitely a member of the elf cups, but there is not enough evidence there to support it's a Scarlet Elf Cup. To be honest with you, it's a 50-50 bet. They're both quite common. To the naked eye, they're both identical. It could be either. But to say that it's definitely one or the other, you're going to need to do some work with a microscope to be absolutely sure of it. There are lots and lots of things like that. As you go through things, agreeing things, people will leave comments back to you, and you will start to learn more of these things. No one can be expected to know all of it for every species out there, so just do the best that you can. Like I say, Google around things lots and improve knowledge as we go. That's kind of what this whole project is all about. You can start off not knowing if that is a petal fallen from a rose bush or a mushroom or a twig, and end up knowing that there's 2 different types of elf cup in the UK, and you need a microscope. And perhaps I'm going to enroll on a microscopy course, and you've gone from not knowing if it's a mushroom or not to looking at mushrooms down a microscope to identify what species it is. It's not going to happen overnight, but this project is hopefully going to take people along that process. Whatever point you're in, hopefully we're going to have something for you somewhere in there and try and take you along that process as we go.
Exactly. So so I'm conscious, Patrick, we're sort of on the 8:30 mark. So if we do sort of one more observation, do you think, of how we make how we improve observations and the types of information? So obviously at this stage you've shown how you can suggest alternatives and either definitely disagree or not definitely disagree but not agree either. How you can contact someone to ask for more information. I had one of those actually. I had a picture of some eggs in a nest, and I recorded it as bird. I don't know what type of bird laid those eggs, and I recorded it as an egg. And then someone actually messaged me and sort of started asking me for further. They thought it might be dipper. Was the nest directly above a watercourse? And when I came back and said no, it wasn't, then they were like, well, maybe it isn't a dipper, and so on and so forth. So so basically you can start to ask further questions of people. If you think, with a bit of extra information, if you could help improve, you can contact people and ask them for extra information if they have it. say you can agree or disagree and with sightings. You can add extra information around life stage and whether it's alive and dead and that type of information. And all of this, is basically improving the quality of the record and also probably bringing it into someone else's view within iNaturalist. So it might put it on the radar of someone else who knows a bit more about that particular sort of taxonomic class or similar. So if we do another one, do you think, Patrick, and then sort of wrap up from there? Does that sound sensible?
Sounds very sensible. I'll skip over the woodlouse. I just wanted to bring this one up. So this is up in Northumberland again, and I think the person, we've actually been talking with Jessica through iNaturalist, and I think Jessica's probably here this evening who put this in. So Jessica found this out when she was on her, I've got to find out, I think Jessica told me down here, on her young ranger placement with Northumberland National Park. The system's working in there. And it's a great picture. It's a biodiversity action plan species for, and it certainly is down here. I guess it is up in Northumberland as well. It's got a VU up here, so this means it's vulnerable on the IUCN's red list. So it's an internationally endangered species. Because of that, its location has been blurred. So you can see we've got this big red square going around its location, and it's put a random dot within that to show somewhere where it might be, but it's just somewhere inside that big red square is its location. We've got all the dates and everything in there. But this is one of those ones that we really want to get out. And because it's such a visual species as well, it's the sort of thing that people do take photographs of and upload because it's so amazing. It's quite easy to identify, and it's going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks before it's gone. But the mycelium will be growing in the ground for decades and decades. And so knowing the location of this, having thousands of sets of eyes out looking for these sorts of things, and hundreds of sets of eyes within sort of this group searching for people who have found it to add it to our project, really helps to make sure that those things get picked up on. Now, I don't think, I'll just see what my last slide was. Oh, so the last bit here was about managing your notifications within iNaturalist, which is basically this drop down here and come to your profile and account settings, and under notifications you can check which emails you get from iNaturalist. They usually put everything into a once a day daily update. Once you've commented on all of these things, when other people comment on them as well, you will start to get an email, a daily email that says user XYZ has commented on a post that you commented on, and that can start to get quite a lot of notifications coming through. So with that bit, like I say, from your profile picture up here, you can start to manage which of those notifications you do get coming through if you want to. We intend to keep in touch with people through our project journal posts as well, so that will come through as part of it. So if you want to keep on getting those, make sure you keep on your project journal posts being ticked. Other than that, I think I'll stop sharing my screen, and if people have got questions they want to ask, have we got time to go through do some of that, do we think?
Yeah, I think so. So basically, if there are any sort of questions on this, then please raise hands. In fact, I can see Ian Cole. So if that is the Ian Cole that I know,
yes, it is.
Hello, Ian.
Hi, how are you doing?
Right.
I was just after a bit of clarification, really. When you're uploading your records, will it automatically assign your sighting to the project? Because obviously a lot of us will be submitting records from all over the place. Will it automatically detect if I'm sort of within the park boundaries when I've submitted those?
Yeah, so
it's exactly that. If you're inside of the park boundary or wherever you are, it puts a dot on it. If it's inside the park boundary, it comes to the park. Dave and myself were just talking just before the meeting as well about the possibility of adding a new national park which is the whole of the United Kingdom, which is possibly a bit of a grand thing from our National Parks Movement perspective, but essentially for the purpose of this project, to look at all observations across the whole of the United Kingdom for people which have come to the National Parks project and showed an interest in being involved in it, particularly over the next month or two during sort of lockdown, when people might find it harder to be getting to the national parks. It means you'll be able to take part wherever in the UK you are, and your records be added to this main project as part of that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I was asking, because I did a sort of garden bio blitz last year, and obviously I just wanted to make sure that app would sort of differentiate between the two. That's great, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, Ian, that's exactly right. So it's geolocated. So we will pick up any record made by anyone that falls within a national park boundary. And clearly, as a group of national parks, we're particularly interested in sightings within our boundary. But also, you know, nature doesn't recognise the lines we draw on a map. So actually, sightings outside of national parks and you know, there's a lot of now we're talking about connecting nature and green corridors and all these sorts of things as well. So actually recording wildlife wherever it exists and capturing it is useful. Clearly, as I say, we have a particular interest in you know, what's within our remit directly within our boundary, but also the wider principle of this project is about engaging more people so they just care about nature more. So, you know, get recording wherever you are, get practicing, and then hopefully when the time is right and we can welcome people back into the parks, we'll have lots and lots more people spotting interesting things within the park boundary as well. But we'll see it if you take it within the park, we'll see it as part of this. Have we got any other questions?
Back then.
Oh, Joe, I can see Joe Hutton. So Joe, if you want to unmute as well. I know Joe as well. This is like the Northumberland show. What's going on?
Hello there, Dave.
Hi, Joe.
Hi. Yeah, I was just wanting to ask, obviously as a volunteer, if we're trying to encourage visitors to the park to use this, how do we encourage them without them necessarily becoming over enthusiastic? And you know, for example, in terms of, say, disturbing bird nests or just getting a little bit too close? Yeah,
that's a good question, Joe. I'll actually go up a stage on that because Patrick covered this as well. One of the concerns about this would be about sort of rare species as well, and the fungi that Jess took the photograph of, because that sits on a protected species list, it automatically hides its, or obscures its location. So that happens automatically. So if there are things which are particularly particularly valuable, for want of a better word, that appear on a list, then those sorts of locations are obscured. More generally, in terms of, if, as you say, people get a little bit sort of over enthusiastic and you're kind of into disturbance sort of characteristics, I think that's more about how we market it, and I think that's a really genuine concern, actually. I think that's a very good point that we need to pick up in our sort of communications and marketing about things. It's a similar, we do get it with visitors generally when we're talking about dogs on leads and all those sorts of things as well, about the sort of too much disturbance. So I think, to me, that is probably something that we need to pick up in our comms and marketing about, approaching things. I don't know if you have a comment on that, Patrick.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we've been talking about, certainly on Exmouth, I know one or two of the other parks, is about how we can almost combine this with the country code. Yeah. So it becomes part of the messaging is, you know, please don't light fires, please take your rubbish home, please do record wildlife. And I guess as part of that, there needs to be some education about, like you say, disturbing bird nests and those sorts of things. Some good tips on how to take photographs of things without damaging them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Joe, that's a really good question, Joe. So thanks for that, and we need to pick that up as well as part of this.
Okay, thank you. I do think it all looks great. I'm looking forward to using it.
Grand. Anyone else? Any questions on that? I can't see any hands going up. So I think what we'll do is we'll apologise for some of our technical issues sort of earlier on. As I say, when Patrick and I tested this earlier this evening, it all worked swimmingly and perfectly, didn't it, Patrick? So slightly frustrating that we.
The participant list, it all goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as we've got anyone actually in attendance, that's when it goes wrong. But when it's just me and you, Patrick, it absolutely works a treat. So that's the main thing. So apologies for some of our technical problems earlier on. Sorry that we couldn't quite share and show you in the way that we had anticipated. But hopefully what this has done is it's given you the overview of the project at large and how we're really sort of trying to link our second purpose back to our first purpose, but also make it, you know, widely accessible within that sort of wider sort of purpose of what national parks are all about. And also, hopefully, it's given you a little bit of an insight into how you can start playing either on your mobile phone or on your computer whilst you're in lockdown. If you can't get out into parks, you know, please stay within the restrictions that are in place at the time, but do get out locally, do get practicing. Certainly, if you've got an extensive photograph library, for example, of wildlife, get uploaded, fill those stuck at home with getting your records up, and then start having a look under that identify tab. As Patrick said, there's lots of filters there. So you can, if you have a particular interest in a particular taxonomic class, you could do that. If you want to look just in your own national park, you can filter by location as well. So if you particularly want to stay close to home, that's fine. But if you want to help all the parks, then please don't filter by your local park. But you can filter it which way you like, basically, wherever your interests lie, and then just get out recording, get involved improving the quality of the data that we have, and that would be really helpful to us right now. So unless there are any other questions, which I can't see any at this stage, I'd like to thank Patrick in particular, because he is the guy who knows how all this works and is very much the brains behind it. He has told us before that Exmoor are planning for world domination, but the other 14 parks took a different view to that and said, no, we'll do that jointly. I think without Exmoor world domination.
World domination now. It's all of us together.
Exactly, it's National Parks UK domination now. So thank you very much, Patrick. You really put a lot of time and energy and effort into bringing this up, and I think it's a really great project that we can all get involved in and get behind. So thank you for that. Thank you for Sally as well from the Yorkshire Dales for introducing us at the beginning. I know that I had Mike in Cairngorm lined up as a substitute if Sally couldn't do that. So we've got our friends north of the border as well, you know, very on board. We've got our friends in Wales on board. So it's just great to see the 15 UK parks sort of coming together and promoting nature and wildlife, basically. Yeah, we just encourage everybody get out. So thank you for that, and we'll see you again soon.